Yeah, because the Germans did a whole spate of fakes. They did this one. They did Hemiunu. They made a new head for Hemiunu.
There it is. More of the same old off-the-cuff vague projection and zero evidence to go along with it. The real issue here is that the statue of Hemiunu appears too Caucasoid for Afrocentrics' liking. That's why they dismiss it as a forgery. Either they haven't done any research to support such wild claims, or they deliberately ignore the evidence. But the statue isn't just about its Caucasoid morphology, it represents a real, living, breathing person from 4,000 years ago. Hemiunu, the grandson of Pharaoh Sneferu. This means Hemiunu inherited familial facial traits from Pharaoh Sneferu, and racists, it seems, cannot accept Caucasoid features in ancient Egypt, particularly among those of royal blood. So they resort to denial, distortion, and false claims to defend their ideology. Prince Hemiunu was the son of Nefertmart and Itet, grandson of King Sneferu and nephew of King Khufu. Therefore, it is safe to say that Hemiunu was a man at the centre of Egypt's pyramid age. Among Hemiunu's titles, he was noted as King's son of his body, Chief Justice, Grand Vizier, greatest of the five of the House of Thoth. Hemiunu occupied a position of power second only to the monarch himself, overseeing all royal works by his uncle Khufu's decree, as such the design of the Pyramid of Khufu. Here, Andy asserts that the Germans fabricated a new head for Hemiunu, but where is his evidence? What proof does he actually present? Absolutely nothing at all. The headless statue of Hemiunu was discovered inside the serdab of his mastaba tomb at Giza on March 12, 1912, during excavations led by German Egyptologist Hermann Juncker, director of the German-Austrian expedition to Giza from 1911 to 1929. The head of Hemiunu was found lying beside the statue within the serdab, exhibiting some damage yet preserving distinct and recognizable facial features. Its discovery in direct association with the body conclusively refutes Andy's claim that the Germans fabricated a new head. By advancing this unfounded assertion, he not only misrepresented the archaeological record, but also unjustly impugned the integrity of the German scholars responsible for the excavation. Andy claims that the Germans fabricated a new head for Hemiunu in order to make it appear European. Yet here it is, the original limestone head of Hemiunu, carefully placed into a basket during the excavation of the serdab. The head had been damaged by thieves, with the eyes gouged out and portions of the nose and cheek defaced. This is clearly not a new head, as Andy asserts, but the original one that was later restored. If Hemiunu, the grandson of Pharaoh Sneferu, appears to possess European features in Andy's eyes, that says more about Andy's own conscience than about the statue itself. His discomfort with such features exposes his underlying internal bias and refusal to accept the genetic and anthropological reality present in ancient Egypt. The truth is that Egypt's elite, including Hemiunu and his lineage, reflected a Caucasoid population, not the oversimplified and fabricated Black Egypt narrative Andy is trying to impose. Here, the limestone head of Hemiunu carefully placed into a basket during excavation, 1912. Notably, the eyes of the statue had been deliberately hacked out in antiquity, causing collateral damage to other parts of the face, including portions of the nose. However, the lips, chin, ears, and much of the head survived. In its unrestored state, Hemiunu's distinct Caucasoid facial features are still clearly recognizable. This is precisely why Andy misrepresents the statue. Its appearance challenges his preconceived notions about how ancient Egyptians looked, a reality that unsettles him precisely because the figures do not reflect his own image or expectations. Enough of the original nose remained intact to allow for an accurate restoration using its original fragments, along with a recreation of the missing eyes. shown here, a before and after comparison of the restoration through careful patchwork, as evidenced by the visible repair lines and the reintegration of original fragments. The statue's facial features were meticulously reconstructed while preserving the integrity of the original material. Obviously, the archaeological evidence demonstrates that the head is original with some restoration and not a new head, contrary to Andy's false assertion. The restoration was guided by a relief fragment discovered in the 1920s during excavations by Harvard University, which depicted the profile of Hemiunu's face and provided essential reference material for the accurate reintegration of the statue's features. And here we find documentation of the discovery. Quote, Pelizaeus, who was present at the discovery, described his first impressions dated April 10th, 1912. The excavations have just been finished for this winter and have produced, and then finally, a truly remarkable treasure, a life-size statue of the seated figure of the king's own son by birth, Minister of Public Affairs. It was a unique sight to see the large statue situated in the serda made of square limestone blocks, through the hole made by Roman tomb robbers, an absolute surprise. Unfortunately, robbers had apparently damaged the statue's head and gouged out the eyes, which were probably made of precious materials. Nevertheless, we were able to gather all the fragments, with the exception of the eyes, and will therefore be able to restore the head. And there it is, Andy, the compulsive pathological liar with a persistent tendency to distort everything Egyptian and European, and particularly in this instance, he falsely claimed Hemiunu's head had been recreated by German archaeologists, a fabrication entirely unsupported by the archaeological record. Evidently, some people resort to distortion and misrepresentation when the evidence contradicts their narrative. Andy is a case in point.